The time will come when the younger generation will climb up on every stump they can find and rock, and they will curse our memory for all time to come for what we have done to this land and for what we have allowed to happen to this land.
Sad the day when I saw the steam shovels a-comin', the clank of their wheels as they rattle along. Deep in my heart a voice seemed to be saying, goodbye, my sweet home, you soon will be gone. In 1880, my folks were rejoicing. They'd sold the mineral rights on the farm for 25 cents an acre. They sold it. My folks didn't know they would do any harm.
It's like taking the land away from the Indians, doing the people in Appalachia the same way. But lawyers and attorneys claim that it's a legal contract, and it's one of the worst, most hated pieces of paper that could come on anybody. This is who they're dealing with in 1889 for 27 cents an acre, together with full and complete rights and privileges of every kind for mining and transporting such coal, gases, oil, and minerals, whether contained on these said premises or elsewhere. I'm against this broad form deed. I've always been against this broad form deed, and I'll die against this broad form deed.
Down in the valley, about a mile from me, where the crows no longer cry, there's a great big earth-moving monster machine, stands 10 stories high. Well, the ground he can eat, it's a sight. He can rip out 100 tons at a bite. He can eat up the grass, it's a fact, but he can't put it back.
It hurts. Think you have to see every bit of this tore down around you? What's been done over there will be done just for a few dollars. And the dollars are spent. Now what have they got? Nothing but that unsightly seed. And their water all destroyed. But I don't see dollar signs. I could use money, sure. But I get by. My land's still like it was. They tried to establish me a pauper in the courts. I guess maybe they think I'm a pauper. The lawyer asked me if I knew what the word pauper meant, of all things in the court. You know, that's almost degrading you. I said, I will beat you and I don't have to have money. As long as there's a Wooten lives with this family, they'll not strip it.
I come in from work one evening. Sitting there on the porch, I had the baby in my lap. And there was your corners or another man wanted to come there and wanting to take my picture, and I give him permission for it. So he went back to the camera and started taking the pictures.
They were over in this area here taking the pictures from the people that was in the house over here. There was houses all up and down through this spot at that time. Hobart Ison was coming up the road, had a 49 Buick, and he seen them taking those pictures of his renters. And he came up the road right here and pulled in.
He got out of the car right there and came over to where they was at.
It all happened awfully fast. A man drives up, opens the door of a car, takes a few steps, screams at us, shoots a gun off.
Mr. O'Connor briefly looked down in amazement and saw a hole in his chest. And he looked up in despair and said, "Why did you have to do that?" And with blood coming from his mouth, he fell to the ground.
Well, it had to be murder. Had to be.
These are the mountains I come from in eastern Kentucky. The killing that happened here had a lasting effect on the lives of everyone who lived through it, and now that includes me. I've passed this place in the road many times in my work as a filmmaker, documenting life here. Over the years, I learned what had happened, but I wanted to go beneath the surface to find out why it happened. I wanted to explore this incident that reflects a dark side of where I live. What brought these two men, Hobart Ison with his gun and Hugh O'Connor with his camera, face to face in September of 1967? To Hobart Ison, Hugh O'Connor was a stranger with a camera. Here in this place, I became a neighbor, a wife, and mother with a camera. As a filmmaker, I felt that O'Connor's death and my community's response to it had something to teach me. As someone who lives in the community I document, what can I learn from this story, now that I have stood on both sides of the camera? I grew up in a place inundated with picture takers of the creeks, the hollows, the houses, and the people of Appalachia. I didn't think much about it back then. After all, what did those images have to do with me?
I have left a land of bondage with its earthly treasures. I've journeyed to a place where there is love on every hand. I've exchanged.
What is the difference between how people see their own place and how others represent it? Who does get to tell the community's story? And what are the storyteller's responsibilities? And what do these questions have to do with the murder that happened here?
My papa was 89 years old, and he lived here his entire life. And he owned this land, and this land was his, but he didn't own the mineral rights because years ago the mineral rights were sold for really cheap prices. And so the coal companies could come in here legally and destroy his land so that they could get the coal. And he fought all of his life because he didn't want to see his property destroyed. And I think it's really sad that they can come in here and tear up and do whatever they want to his property to get what they want for money, because it's almost like you're saying their culture isn't as valuable as what's underneath them. We've mined coal so much, and we're still in this shape. What makes us think that increase in coal is going to make it any better?
It's just so enormous that you can't even get there. You know, if you start trying to add up like all the agencies that deal with it, you know, and all the externalized costs around coal, it's impossible. So I thought the true cost of coal was the price that people pay every day in their lives.
There was a mountain that's behind us that was once owned by my husband's family, but distant relatives sold it, and the coal company has pretty much removed most of the top of the mountain. We can't even get decent water where I live. We have well water that's been contaminated. It had more than 100 times that they allow to have arsenic in it. So like for 3 years I bathed my daughter in water that had high levels of arsenic in it. And I bathed in it, and my husband bathed in it.
There was a crack in the roof, and Russell was told, and the superintendent was told, and they just told him to disregard it. It's not important, keep mining. He went to work that Wednesday. He was working second shift, and around 11 o'clock, there was a knock on my door, and my cousin's daughter come there and was telling me that there was 2 men outside. So I went outside, and 2 of the men who have been friends of the family for years but worked up there were out on my porch, and they asked me to come outside, and they said there had been a roof fall and that there was 2 guys unaccounted for. One was my husband. All they care about is money. That was pretty much shown when my husband got killed. It's all about the money. These men are just a number to them.
Pregnancy prevention has been around since the very beginning of time. Some of the earliest forms of birth control dates back to like 1550 BC.
The Urbis Papyrus was a medical scroll for herbal knowledge in ancient Egypt in 1550 BC, and it's one of the oldest preserved medical documents still left on the planet.
The scroll contained over 700 magical formulas and remedies, and also information on how the body works.
The papyrus also contains several chapters on contraception, diagnosing pregnancy and other reproductive health information.
Back in those times, women would smear a paste of, I can't say this word, so I'm going to insert it here, leaves and honey to wool, and they would insert it into themselves. I just want to thank whoever invented my IUD because, girl, that sounds like a rough time.
Herbal medicine and witchcraft was used in early medieval times, not because people wanted to be witches, because women wanted control over their own fertility and childbearing.
Women were killed for making that decision. Over an estimated 200,000 witches were tortured, burned, or hanged.
Spain was also another place that tried to repress contraceptive potions, and the witchcraft women used to fortify them. In 546, the Council of Lerida condemned both men and women from using birth control, potions, and magic.
By the 7th century, kings rewarded free information about witchcraft so they could punish the people who were seeking and enabling abortions.
Some ancient contraceptives. People used siliphium due to its effectiveness. It was harvested into extinction. Women were also encouraged to tie weasel testicles around their thighs before having intercourse. They claimed it worked.
The first condom was discovered in 1640, and it was made out of animal guts. It wasn't until the 20th century that condoms were widely available.
Let's talk about early 1900s birth control.
If you look closely to vintage ads, they seem hilarious and yet very shocking. One I seen circling the internet not too long ago was a Lysol ad.
It told women to use Lysol, the disinfectant, as a female hygiene product. In some cases, it caused inflammation, burning, and even death.
That's not scary enough for you? Let's talk a little bit about ancient China for a second. They would mix lead, liquid mercury, and arsenic and drink it to prevent pregnancy. Yeah, you heard me right. I'm just as surprised as you are.
Maybe after the first 1,000 deaths, they would have realized it had a chance of causing kidney failure, brain damage, and you already know this one, death.
All of us here at All Access EKY are very thankful that we now have reliable, safe, and healthy birth control methods. But we wouldn't be where we are today in our health care if it wasn't for the sacrifices that were made since the beginning of time.